helpfully, you speak of one of our favourite historical economists, Adam Smith, and reiterate one of our beliefs, which is that he has been woefully misinterpreted, and that he didn't mean that we should have the invisible hand of the market trample all over human hearts and the world. And I wondered if you wanted to just pick up on some of that and, you know, link it back to one of our beliefs, which is around the need for a reimagining of the markets and the need for a reassertion of the moral compass. And I wonder if you could touch on as well, there is an element of suspiciousness or disbelief in the Davos set and this kind of new extolling of the virtue of stakeholder capitalism. Why are you so down on that? And talk about Adam Smith as well and what he means to you.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, Adam Smith has been used and abused by modern capitalism in a way, and what he was talking about and what he was writing about when he was particularly writing about the invisible hand, for example, was a sense in which at that time enterprise worked through the trust of local communities, and that trust was absolutely integral to the success of the market. And as soon as you begin to remove that trust, as soon as you begin to remove those social relationships from the market, actually that's when things go wrong. And Adam Smith was absolutely blunt about that. I mean, they're wonderful florid prose passages that mirror things that Marx wrote, you know, 100 years later, in which he talks about how there's a set of people who are quite willing to deceive and dissemble in order to pursue their own self-interest. And he also says that in those circumstances, the only thing you can do to oppose those big interests, particularly when they gain monopoly power, is to have big government. So everybody quotes Adam Smith actually as talking about, you know, the freedom of the market, the invisible hand, everything will work out well, governments should stay in the background. That is not what he thought. And he would have been appalled by, for example, the robber barons of the early 19th century, these big conglomerates, monopoly interests in oil and in railroads and in transportation and even in industries like law and the legal foundations, people who actually began to gain so much power in society that they controlled governments. And he would have seen in that, you know, the risks of the market going wrong. Likewise, I think, you know, and in a sense, in the century between the robber barons and the financial crash, we saw a whole range of other monopoly interests that became incredibly powerful, that influenced government, a sense of revolving doors between the interests of corporations and the policymakers in power, just to ensure that the conditions were right for a certain set of people to go on getting richer. Adam Smith would have railed against that. He would have hated it. And his moral philosophy was built around the idea that the market only works through a perspective of trust and community and knowing each other in context. And it's that knowing each other and that trust that prevents us from cheating and from monopolizing markets and pursuing unrestrained self-interest. So that's, you know, I think that's a really important point to make. And it's also an important point because it tells us actually how far away from those ideas capitalism has moved. And, you know, even the ideas themselves have been subject, if you like, they've been, you know, encapsulated, incorporated, enclosed in the economic language by capitalism. Ideas are enclosed as much as fields were and property was in the during the Renaissance period, as much as resources are from the 19th century onward, as much as land is today. And the enclosure of ideas is a very dangerous thing. It prevents us from seeing clearly. And so, you know, we need, in some sense, to go back to that old Adam Smith and understand his moral philosophy and his understanding actually also of society.